Okay, I'm going to come back to Carol's question. So Carol's asking about where water gets caught between the cell spaces when too much fluid moves from the intravascular space into the interstitial or third space non-functional area between cells. Carol, maybe you and I are going to have a more in-depth conversation about this at some point, because that's not, like, the interstitial space is not a non-functional area. It's continuous with the blood. So I'm going to bring this back more general to my understanding of edema, I think. So edema is basically going to be caused by excess salt retention in the body. And the reason is that, with exception of very extreme scenarios, your body's going to tightly regulate the sodium concentration of the water in your body, and sodium draws water. Now, that's not to say that the cause is eating salt. And there are cases where eating salt might remove edema, but generally salt retention of total water volume is going to be a big factor. In hypothyroidism, it becomes, I believe, at least partly about glycoproteins in those spaces that are holding onto water. So I would say if it's thyroid related, you're not really talking about nutritional support, you're talking about fixing the thyroid. Maybe that means nutritional support, but it might mean other things. But the nutrition's aimed at the thyroid, not the edema. Maybe manganese, maybe, I'm just totally guessing, maybe manganese would help modulate those glycoproteins in hypothyroidism the same way that it does in making the sticking and regulating the stickiness of the arterial wall. I'm totally guessing on that. But edema very often, like in the edema in the menstrual cycle, for example, premenstrual edema is caused by high aldosterone, which is probably caused by high progesterone. And I know that everyone in alternative health thinks that progesterone is a good hormone and estrogen is a bad hormone, but in PMS water retention, I believe progesterone is just accumulating so much that it's spilling into aldosterone. And I genuinely don't know what to do about the high progesterone, but about the high aldosterone, I do. Oh, so magnesium and B6 have been shown to help with that. Magnesium, I did an episode about that. So I would Google Masterjohn what to do about menstrual weight gain for more details on that. But magnesium and B6, and then I would play around with salt and potassium. So generally, less salt during that time and more potassium in the diet are potentially going to be helpful. And I think the principles are going to be similar elsewhere. Like, it doesn't have to be in the menstrual cycle. You are generally going to find that salt is increasing extracellular water and potassium is increasing intracellular water. And that's often going to be a factor in edema that can't be tied to thyroid hormone.